Okay, so first off, the program I'm using is Toon Boom Storyboard Pro, which is what I use for pretty much all of my professional storyboard jobs. There are other programs you can use. I've known artists who use Photoshop or Flash or whatever, but Storyboard Pro is the easiest for me and a lot of other artists and directors. It's a very efficient program, not just for drawing storyboards, but for working with them in sequence and for making animatics. Toon Boom is not paying me any money to promote this program, but, maybe they'll mail me a sandwich. This is not really a conventional storyboard I've done, since the drawings are a lot more fleshed out than they would be on some other productions. There are productions where sometimes even very simple sketches are acceptable as long as the character has the right size and proportions and the poses can be read clearly. And there are other productions where they insist you draw more on model. There's a lot of different reasons for either approach. Sometimes you have to work really fast, other times you really have to spell things out for other animators and artists that refer to your work, and so on and so on. And again, different productions will have different rules. Since this is my own project, I'm making it look the way I want, which is more like a finished product than just a reference for another artist or animator. After I've drawn him in, I lay in some very simple tones, which gives him some form and definition and makes him look all nice and shady. After that, I sort of fill in the drawing using the draw behind option and brush in some white. Toon Boom does have a feature where you can auto-fill in a layer with white, which I don't always use because the results are a little messier than I like. But again, that may not always be a problem depending on what you're working on. The autofill has actually been a lifesaver some shows where I had to do a ton of character drawings within a single scene. And you can also just, fill in the white on a separate layer, which is what a lot of artists do. I just personally prefer having less layers to sift through, and plus it's easier for me to just delete the fill if I have to by using the color select tool, in case if I want to make changes to the line art. Again, that's just a personal choice, and I've worked with at least one storyboard director who hates it when I have a white fill on the same layer as the drawing, so, sometimes you just gotta do things their way, and that's fine. Another quick note I should make for those of you learning Toon Boom is that I'm drawing with vector lines, which makes changes to your drawing super easy, but it can also make your file sizes really huge. You can also work with bitmap layers if that's more of your thing. Just, use whatever's most efficient for you, or whatever your director tells you to use. For any first-time storyboard artists or students who might be watching this video, I would very highly recommend you learn the ropes of storyboarding first from other videos you can find on YouTube, whether it's about storyboards, figure drawing, cinematography, how to use the Toon Boom programs. There's a lot of great materials out there that will teach you what you need to know. The two professional storyboard artists I would very highly recommend following are Sherm Cohen, who has worked on a lot of different shows and has done some great tutorials on storyboarding, and the second is Mark Simon, who has done boards for films, television, animation, commercials, and on and on. He's also done some great videos and has even written some books about storyboarding, so definitely look up his stuff. Both of these artists have had decades more experience than I've had, so they'll do a much better job of teaching you what you really need to know. Now, if you're still hanging around here after I've said all that, let's get back to the scene at hand, which is a very simple fake moving shot with an anime background and all of our characters charging into camera. The speed lines in the background are going to be moving backwards as the characters move forward, which I'm just going to be doing with the layer transform tool. Another approach you could use is just doing a camera move and have all of the characters on pinned layers to move with the camera, but that's a little more complicated. Anytime you can make the job easier for yourself, do it. The background characters are being drawn with a lighter shade of gray and also have much lighter and less detailed shadows on them, which is a useful way to visually push them back further so they don't compete too much with the foreground characters. Atmospheric perspective is a really good thing to learn about, both for drawing and cinematography purposes. So play around with what you can. You push characters forward and pull them backward. It helps give the illusion of space. It's really important to know about composition and how to set up a shot so that everything can be read clearly. In this case, there are 5 characters I'm squeezing into frame, which could get easily cluttered if it isn't planned out right. The sample I'm doing here is actually a pretty simple situation, since it's a very exaggerated moving shot with characters leaping or flying through the air regardless of perspective or gravity. But there are some other cases where getting this many characters into frame can be a hassle. What makes this easier is choosing which characters to focus on more than others, so even if there are a lot of characters in the shot, I can still emphasize some more than others just by, who's more in frame or where they're placed or whatever. In this case, I've chosen to put Throgor right up front since he's the largest character, and putting him up close and in the corner means I can show less of his full figure. Another alternative would have just, put him furthest in the back behind all of the other smaller characters, but since he's sort of the leader of the group, I wanted to give him more emphasis. Now that all of the characters have been drawn in and moved around a bit for better composition, I'm going to be using the Layer Transform tool again to move them into shot. This is just a really simple and quick motion, basically just sliding them all in. But there are actually many ways you can use layer transforms to simulate animation pretty well, which I can talk about in another video. With the background characters, I'm just sliding them into place on a very two-dimensional plane, but with Throgor up front, I'm going to do something a little different and have him sort of come at the camera, which is really easy to do with the layer transform to change his size in the last keyframe. You can also see that I drew one of his arms on a different layer so I can transform and move that separately from the rest of his body, which is another trick you can do to simulate animation, or moving through space. Now I'm just gonna go through it again a couple of times and play with the timing to get it where I want, and this is what we get. Thank you for watching, folks! If you've enjoyed these silly cartoons, please check out Dr. Caliban and the Sinister Monster Doom Legion, available now on Amazon. This collects the entire storyboards for all 3 episodes of the series, along with bonus comics, behind-the-scenes art, and a book-exclusive story, The Z-Plot. And for those of you who don't want to give your money to Bezos, I don't blame you, you can help support the series on Patreon at patreon.com/scapula, or order a book at the Scapula bookstore at scapulacomic.com.